Good morning, and welcome to the Breakfast Chat. I hope you guys are doing well. Good morning, Bogdan. Good morning, Nico. Bogdan, how are you?
Hello. I'm very fine. It was good to be in Malta and meet so many friendly faces, some colleagues which I didn't see for, almost 2 years, and also get to know some new contacts, new customers, new clients. So it's been fun. Now is the hard work of making those contacts a little bit more um, used or accessible, I would say, and profitable for the company.
Yeah, it was nice bumping into you there, Bogdan, as well, albeit for a very short brief time. But it was nice to see you in person. Good to put a body to that voice, so to say.
Yeah, exactly, and it was fun, and was funny to see your face that you were actually who the hell that guy is. it was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's how it is when you get to know each other through an audio chat room, I guess. But yeah, it was great, Bogdan. Nice to see you there too, and nice to have you back here in the breakfast chat. And Nico, good morning to you as well. How are things on your end? Everything's okay?
Yeah, it's all okay, and yeah, it's interesting just to see familiar faces once again. And Bogdan, Rory, Brian, and Daniel just joined us as well. The same applies to me at what Bogdan just said with Walter, who's sitting in the audience as well. I met him for the first time live and in person as well. But funny fact is, you're kind of used to the voice, and it just seems like you know a person already, and now then you just see him live and in person. It's quite odd, but yeah, it's interesting just to realize this.
Absolutely, and I mean we've done this now for what is it, 45 weeks, or I think even more, 45 weeks straight. And it's a funny thing what happens in this chat. It's like somehow you get to know each other on some basic level. We start speaking outside of these chats, and then whoop, you meet each other in person, and it's like you've known each other forever. That's how it was for me and Karolina as well. We've been getting to know each other since the pandemic, and meeting in person, and it's like we've been friends forever. So it's not impossible to form friendships over these digital mediums, that's for sure. Speaking of which, Karolina, good morning to you. How is it?
Good morning. I'm flattered, Pierre, to be called a friend by now. But I have to say I have a couple of these people as well that I met over the media. I mean, Savas from Mr. Q, Leo from Huddle, same thing. We met over Zoom, and probably if there was no pandemic, we wouldn't keep in touch with those people that often, because I mean you'd have some other life, I would say, but because we were quite limited in having a life, and then there was more work talk and more sort of connections made, I guess. So I'm kind of grateful for the digitalization of the networking, because it's easier and you get to know more people.
Absolutely, the blessing in disguise, and then following the revolution in connection building over the internet will obviously be followed by the Web3 and the metaverses and all the things. Which is, speaking of which, Daniel, good morning to you. Welcome here.
Good morning.
What's your digital personality going to look like in the metaverse?
It's going to be very expensive.
Of course it is. I mean,
It'd probably look like an ape, but the way things are going.
I believe so as well. Yes. There's the new cyberpunks that have been released on the NFT side, which are the metaverse apes that will be popular now in the upcoming games. Maybe it will be one of those.
Anything I can get my hands on, really, at the moment. I think it's just a land grab. I want to buy all the property. I think in a year's time we'll just have conferences in the metaverse.
Yeah, what did you say the other day, Pierre? You said the land that you bought the other day has gone up 15% or something like that, isn't it? You bought back in the day.
Yeah,
right?
Me and Daniel just spoke about this before, but I mean, everyone who is in the audience should really pay attention to what's happening right now on the metaverse NFT space, because it's absolutely insane. I mean, first of all, it has to be a bubble. I mean, it just has to be a bubble. But the .com bubble burst as well in the 2000s. But that did not mean that the internet was not the future. It was a correction of the market, of course. And I mean, there's a game that is unreleased, which is called the Sandbox. And what is cool with the Sandbox is that it has an in-game economy that is based on the blockchain, right? So that is kind of what the metaverse is in the future. You can basically earn a living in this game. The game is unreleased, Sandbox, but it's very hyped. And the market cap of the in-game currency, which is called Sand, is currently like on par with the entire market cap of EA Sports, like the biggest game producer in the world. I mean, it's insane. It's just absolutely crazy. It has the market cap of Sand has 10 doubled since Facebook announcement that they are now becoming a metaverse driven or visioned company, right? So the space is just absolutely blowing up, and there are quite a number of projects that is taking place within the iGaming industry that is going to leverage NFTs and also the metaverse in the future. So we'll start seeing that more and more as we go forward now in the next couple of months. I mean, I keep saying this, but the first time I heard the phrase NFT was that like 8 months ago, you know? And since those 8 months, the revolution that's taken place in the NFT space has been incredible. And so the point is that we are just in the very early beginning of this, and there will be corrections. I mean, there has to be corrections. There has to be. This has to be a bubble, right? I mean, it's not realistic that in-game currency has a market cap of like $10 billion to a game that is not even released. Like, no one even knows if the game is good. And it has a market cap of 10 billion. I mean, I don't know what you guys think in the panel, but
you could say that it's creating its own economy, though, to a certain extent, right? You've got these worlds that don't exist in our world, and there's limited supply of land. So I think philosophically, you could say that it's impossible to compare it to like a real world asset class or a value of a real world company, because there is limited supply. Like, let's say Sandbox or Decentraland or whatever is the only, in 20 years, it's still the number one place. Imagine what it will be worth then. So I think that's what people are putting their money behind. You could draw some parallels potentially to the sports betting industry in the US with very limited supply, and what it's going to look like in 10 years. I think people are potentially just using that long-term forecast to determine that it's all undervalued.
Yeah, I suppose one of the risks with it is just making sure that you're prepared to lose all that money if it does go south. I think that whole compliance and regulation element needs to come into it at some point, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm definitely not complaining. By the way, I got lucky and bought land in May or something like that, just for fun, for $1,000, and it's now worth close to 20,000, as it's 20x this digital piece of land, and yeah, I mean, so, God knows what's going to happen.
So can you actually put that up for sale and then someone else buys it off you?
Yeah.
I don't own a bit of land there. But it's quite ironic that there's going to be homeless millionaires. Essentially, you can own an NFT and not a house, and you still be a millionaire. So it's quite funny.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so this is the speculation is what's driving the prices higher and higher. So the prices are being driven by the fact that there's so much volume. Right now, there is so many newcomers into the field who are looking to buy these digital assets, digital land in this game, that the prices are just being driven higher and higher and higher. And I think in the last month or so, the digital land has like 5x or something like that, something along those lines. Because after Facebook announcement of Meta, it seems like the more and more of the masses are basically looking to invest early, let's say. But I understand your sentiment, your argument, Daniel. But it's it's like the digital land is scarce in the game alone, like in Sandbox as a game. But obviously there are more metaverses as well, and you could expect that more and more of these products will start appearing, of course. And the question is just which of these games will take the pole position. And I mean, I really don't see that it will be one game that will have all the liquidity. It will be spread out across many games, and then it's obviously you'll have more and more projects, and that will dilute the availability more and more of digital land across many games. And that's where I have a hard time seeing that this market is sustainable, because obviously the opportunity to buy different products is just increasing day by day, right? So at some point, the liquidity, the availability of different products in different lands will outperform the liquidity of the market, right? At some point, it has to do that, even if it's a new asset class.
Yeah, presumably if platforms continue to launch, you've got to think that Facebook's going to make a real dent in this market, given the fact that that seems like they're heading towards having their own, and the fact that they've been talking about running their own digital currency for a long time, and the fact they've got a huge database. I think they're the companies potentially to look out for when they start getting involved in this space, bringing over their millions or billions of users and giving them their own currency and tying it up into their accounts where they've already got credit cards linked. I think that's potentially when all the other metaverses start to feel the pinch of being more competition in the market. And hopefully people don't go too deep and lose too much money when that happens, or the market just continues to grow and there's enough room for everybody in there. It'll be an interesting time.
I saw my first NFT purchase of significance as a win-win, because if it's like a lottery ticket, right? If it goes up, then hallelujah. But if it crashes down to zero, you'll always have like the best story to tell someone who is sad ever. Like if someone is having a bad day, you can always tell them like, okay, I understand you have a bad day, but remember the time when I bought this stupid ape NFT for like a stupid amount of money, and now it's worth zero. So yeah, maybe your bad day could be worse.
And all I got was this cool T-shirt.
Right. Yeah. All I got was this cool pixelated JPG. Even, but yeah, God knows what's going to happen with this space. But bubble, no bubble. You can very well make the argument that this is absolutely the future, whether you want it or not. And it's a super exciting and interesting space to be a part of in this early stage. I saw some statistic that only like 3% of the entire population in the US right now, they own an NFT. So even though the market is conflated to some extent, you can make an argument that the NFTs are very, very expensive. You can still make the argument that there's a huge amount of people who are still not in this ecosystem. And perhaps it's just a matter of time before they do enter the ecosystem. And again, as an industry from the iGaming side of things, there are some really interesting products that are popping up right now, and the intersection between online gambling and NFTs is just a very interesting proposition. So we'll start seeing new experiences, new betting experiences, and so forth popping up. But on that note, actually, Karolina, I know that you mentioned here before that you were meeting Stefan Kovac, who is one of the primary experts in the intersection between gambling and the NFT metaverse crypto space the other day, and you guys were discussing the metaverse. Like, what's your thoughts now? And I know that you have your panel doing WDS with Stefan. Like, what's your thoughts on this space?
I think it's very interesting, but it's too hard to say where it's going to be in the year. I'm not as optimistic as someone mentioned here. We're going to have conferences in the metaverse next year. I think people are craving the normality, so even Zoom is a bit much. So I'm not sure if the adoption will be that fast. I think it's a different demographic, and it's more the adoption within the geeky people, the tech people, the early adopters, and it's going to take some time for mass adoption. I mean, still to this day, there's a lot of people that have no idea what NFT stands for. Forget metaverse, forget Web 3.0. I mean, companies don't have strategies. They only started to look into this. So this is exactly what I was discussing with Stefan. That's where sort of he comes in, because a lot of people know they want in on these new cool things, but they have no idea what does it take in terms of resource. Do you need a sort of dedicated team with completely different tech skill set? And there's quite a lot of, especially the older demographic, that still don't understand the difference between cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. That's less of it now than a year or 2 years ago, but it's still happening. So me and Stefan were discussing about various cool things that you can do outside of the product. So I wanted to explore, for example, a loyalty system for employees based off NFTs, and it's the same. I know that it's a cool idea. I know that there's cool things could be done with in-game collectibles and the gamification on operation side, but I don't have the expertise to understand the exact effort involved and what kind of who do you reach out to? Do you build the infrastructure, or do you just generate the NFTs? And increasingly, it feels like you need to work with partners, or you need to have some kind of intermediary to fill that skill set, because it's also not easy comprehensible knowledge. So it's not something you learn within 3 days. There's people that specialize in this many times in the choice. It's the same with digital investment. That's what Stefan specializes now, advising sort of companies. How does this investment work? What's worth to invest in, and putting them together with third parties. So long answer. To sum up, I think it's early. I think it could be something that will stay niche for another 2-3 years, regardless of the hype now. I think Facebook adds to the hype. People don't really want to be part of Facebook metaverse. I don't see that kicking off on a great scale. Others will, but I just think it's still going to be targeted towards specific users, not mass adoptions for a couple of years.
So what we also should keep in mind is that especially the fan tokens like the socios who lined up with Inter Milan and kind of had a paradigm shift with becoming the main shirt sponsor of Inter Milan and not getting rid of, but replacing Pirelli, which was the main shirt sponsor for almost 20 years. So this is another vertical, which especially all the sports clubs could actually, get more fans inside the overall ecosystem of a sports club as well. So as Karolina mentioned, of course, it's niche. It will not become the main asset of a sports club, but in the end, it's still a vertical which a sports club can explore and can onboard even more fans becoming part of the club as well.
Yeah, so this just takes me to my last point that Wim Stefan discussed that for our industry specifically. I mean, he feels the same as I. We are so close in certain aspects to gaming industry where this is booming, or where the application is just on a huge scale, and there's so many different ways that you can use it, that there should be a way to apply it into our industry. But there are certain blockers in place in terms of technology and no marketplace, but also regulatory challenges. And I think Sorare, or however you pronounce that, is one of the good examples. That this looked like a great application, sort of with NFT use, and then started to be questioned whether that's gambling or not. Does it require a license or not? And just the regulators, they discourage people from venturing towards these areas, because the moment you touch it, then you're facing a challenge with the regulator, with your license, with your certification. So most people decide to stay clear from it until it's a bit more defined how this is being seen in the regulator eye.
Exactly like the crypto space in general. It was kind of the brave visionaries who went out in the dark to explore this territory, launching exchanges and so on, and it's not until now, years later, where it's becoming clear how to tread this regulatory wise operating exchanges and other product, and I guess that's why we'll see a lag from mass adoption to our industry, for example, leveraging NFTs and metaverse, because exactly what we were just saying, Karolina, just regulatory clarity, essentially, and regulators seems to always be a step behind the course of development in technology. So interesting topic, and we discussed here before that we'd definitely like to bring Stefan on board again to the Clubhouse chat and have a bit of a NFT metaverse special and the intersection between online gambling and the metaverse to understand a little bit better how this paradigm shift will take place as we move into the future, because the future betting experiences in conjunction with the metaverse and NFTs will be very different from the experience that we see it today. It's not like the slot machines will introduce NFT technologies and they will have the same experience. It will be the other way around. It will be from a metaverse perspective. How do you implement gambling into this experience so that maybe the user doesn't even realize that they are gambling, or the experience will be so different from what we are used to? And I guess that is where we need the ideas to start flowing to understand what is the paradigm shift and where is it leading us and so on. But definitely, yeah.
I don't want to give away Stefan's thunder, but he did make one statement in our preparation call for the WGS panel. So I do encourage, if you're interested in the subject, I think that panel will be a great balance between sort of explaining the basics for if you feel totally uncomfortable in the field, but also going into use cases in gaming and outside of gaming, and then a bit into the challenges and what does it take to have Web 3.0 strategy. But he made a statement in there that NFTs in their very basic form are a form of gambling. So he'll be elaborating on why he thinks that, and what are the aspects of that makes them gambling in his view. So I would encourage you guys to join the panel, listen in. I'll also share it on my social media when it's out.
Awesome. I'll have the pleasure of seeing that in person, Karolina. So I'll be on the front row for sure. By the way, yeah, which begs the question: is there anyone on the stage today who is going to WDS? So me, Karolina, I know Daniel, you are going as well.
Correct.
Is there anyone else who is going?
Yeah, me as well.
Oh, fantastic, Nico. All right, then we should definitely hook up over there as well. Great stuff. And that begs a second question, which is SBC North America. Is there anyone in the room who is going there? Me and Rory are going. Anyone else? Okay.
We have our MD US going there, Quincy Raven. He was here last week for Sigma. I don't know if you met him, but he will definitely be there. He will even be speaking, so you can meet up with him if you're interested.
Awesome, Lisbeth. That's great to know as well. Yeah, definitely would be happy to do that as well if he's available. Sure. That'd be cool. Awesome. So guys, we are lots of people on stage today, so that's really exciting. We have a lot of varied opinions. It's nice to see that the room is still going strong, and like 47 weeks later, we still have stuff to talk about. It's a miracle on its own, right? I think. But Nico, why don't we do this today in the 35 minutes that we have? That we have a couple of topics that we would like to zoom in on today. Obviously, there's been some interesting movements on the evolution side and other things as well. But Nico, what do you think? What shall we zoom in on today?
Yeah, so just having a look at our cozy couch, I'm seeing the familiar face of Katie. So why don't we just zoom in into the quad reeling, which puts a halt to the Hard Rock Cafe sports betting in Florida, which has, don't get me wrong on this one, yesterday or the day before yesterday, so a call.
Did I lose him or?
Yeah, I think we
lost him
there for a moment.
I think he's been censored by the Seminoles.
I was like, oh my God, no, I missed the question.
It's being censored. Let's see, Nico, do we have you back, or shall we restart? All right. So I know that Nico wants to bring up the essentially I'm not really that well read on the story. Perhaps Daniel, you are better read, and Katie as well, on basically the fact that Florida had a short stint on the sports betting side of things, but the regional tribe was basically the sports betting side was shut down. But I'm really butchering this essentially. But Daniel, feel free to take over.
Well, Katie might be better to talk about it than I am, but I believe the federal courts ruled down the local ruling. They overruled it because the Seminoles had argued. Well, they agreed on their compact, saying that they could offer mobile gaming from servers that lived within their reservations, but the federal courts ruled it down, saying you're making a mockery of the federal ruling. You can only offer gaming within tribal territories. So I don't know whether it was FanDuel or DraftKings legal work that they put together a $20 million lobby fund that went all the way up to the federal level, maybe, or it just gained so much attention. I know the Hard Rock numbers in Florida were incredible. I think they were getting like 3,000 deposits in an hour or something, or a minute even, when it first opened up. So it probably got national attention, and people started looking at it pretty quickly. It's an interesting one. I don't know whether they'll work it out or whether it'll open up the floodgates for everyone else to start coming to the market, which I would love to see. However, it's a complicated situation.
Yeah, it had been challenged by two casino operators, the West Flagler Associates and Bonita Fort Myers Corporation. And as Daniel already pointed out, it has been an overruling as well. And maybe we can get Katie on this topic and give some insights. What kind of bells already ranked inside Hard Rock Cafe?
No, just to be clear, I mostly work with New Jersey. I've held up Florida a little bit, but I cannot share any insight that I have from Hard Rock, unfortunately.
Fair enough, Katie. That's understandable as well. But Daniel, so your hope is essentially that this will potentially open the floodgates then and open up the market instead, rather than being a monopolized state to hard work in its own.
Yeah, of course. I think just like with New York, it makes sense for the market. It's better for the consumer to have more options on the table. It would be a pretty poor situation for the consumer if they only have access to a single brand in Florida, given the size of the market and their propensity to bet on sports. Yeah, I think it was always likely there was going to be one or two more sneak in through agreements with the Seminoles or with Hard Rock. But I think it'll be very interesting to see how this one unfolds, whether the Seminoles can pull their legal muscle and get the federal ruling overturned and offer state-based gaming through their servers on tribal gaming, or whether it needs to go to a more formal process, which will probably slow the market down a year or two at least while the states regulate. So I don't know where it's going to go from here. I'm not enough of an expert to know everything that's going on behind the scenes, but there's definitely some big money being thrown at this from one particular lobby group. As I said, the $20 million lobby fund from FanDuel or DraftKings. So there's a lot of people with a lot of interest in opening up this market.
Very interesting, Daniel. It'll be interesting to follow up as well. Nico, do you have any other insights on this topic?
Just the expected market size of Florida. So the overall market size, as Florida is one of the 4 biggest states in the US, with California, Texas, Florida, and the last, of course, New York. So the overall market size is estimated as being $2 to $3 billion. So it ain't a small market, which all the operators are specifically aiming for. So this is just the additional insight which I just have as.
It's a huge market, right? Almost 22 million people. It's almost the same size as Australia, and they host the Super Bowl there. There's some big teams there. It will be a very, very big market.
Exciting times. And Nico, what do you say? Shall we jump over to evolution? My fingers are itching a bit.
Yeah, just heading over to evolution. So evolution has attacked the allegation of illegal activity, and as this is one of your favorite topics, as soon as the name of evolution is dropped, I kind of leave the floor for you, Pierre.
Well, as a starting point, if you look at the share price of Evolution in the last 6 months, you could mistake it for an EKG graph. It looks like one of those heartbeats graphs, which just goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And again, we've seen in the last couple of days, in the last week, the share price of Evolution have dropped 25%, which is not so fun to say as a shareholder in the company, I must say. But nonetheless, it's interesting stuff that coming from there. I don't think that it has escaped anyone in this room, but just to summarize why this drop has occurred, it's because there was a short seller report that was released about a week ago that has been commissioned by an anonymous competitor to Evolution, which supposedly is American based. And this short seller report essentially accuses Evolution for offering games to black market based players, like players from the report specifically mentions players from the likes of Syria and Iran, which are sanctioned countries by the US. And of course, the moment you mention, the moment a report mentions that you are doing business with countries like Iran and Syria, from American perspective, 15 red flags and red sirens goes off, and shareholders get spooked, of course. So the knee-jerk reaction to this report has been a drop in 25% so far of the share price. Just this morning, the markets opened 1.5 hours ago, and the share price is down 6.5% today and falling. So we still have possibly not reached the bottom of this bear run, let's say. And so, okay, so then we look at the report. What does the accusation say? Well, in a nutshell, the report is about 100 pages long, and I've skimmed through it, the 100 pages. I haven't read every single word in the report, but essentially what the accusations are is that these short sellers have basically conducted interviews with current and former Evolution executives. They are anonymous, so obviously you don't know exactly to what extent they are telling the truth, but nonetheless, the short seller report is claiming that current and former Evolution employees are talking openly about how they are well aware that Evolution is taking players from these black markets, and how they are very well aware, even though the traffic goes via the operator, and even though the players are using VPNs in order to access these operators, that Evolution is still aware that this foul play is happening through the operators, let's say. And what Evolution has said themselves, they released a press release yesterday, which basically states that Evolution is basically putting the blame on the operator, saying that we are a supplier, we are a content supplier, we produce games, and we offer those games to our operator clients. And then what the operators do is kind of up to them. They are expected to follow local regulation, but it's not Evolution who decides who plays their games. It's the operators who decide if they take a player or not. So therefore, Evolution has no blame in the matter. Now, you could argue that Evolution potentially have some ethical responsibility to ensure that the operators are not being nefarious. Like, I think we all know operators who are nefarious, who do operate on black market. many crypto casinos, obviously. And even though that's general knowledge, Evolution has still taken the decision to supply these operators with their games. So you could say that even if there is no, even if Evolution has not broken the law, they could potentially still have some ethical dilemmas in order to answer the question if they should provide these operators with their games in the first place. So nonetheless, the markets have reacted extremely negative to this, and I would be really excited to hear some opinions on this and what you guys make of this in this chat. So I don't know, Karolina, if you have looked into this a bit further, if you have any thoughts here.
Yeah, I can share my thoughts. It's definitely, I've heard of different opinions. I've heard opinions that this is competition, commissioning these reports, and also quite uncertainty around which competitor, and because there's cases for, some that are in progress of being bought, that maybe they should raise their valuation, or completely other ones where the relationship has been problematic for a while. But I also heard that this is hedge funds, aiming to short, basically with that goal in mind. But on the actual statement of Evo, it's true. When you work as an operator, it's very difficult from a game supplier to detect the country of a customer who is already KYC'd by an operator and is logging in via VPN. It's not impossible, but it's difficult, and I think there probably will be more measures in place from providers. But even in the past, where Australia got shut down, or Canada got shut down by some providers, they'd be blocking them, not just using the game launcher from an operator, but they also had their own recognition on their site to block the markets. But I guess that's bypassed by VPN. So with the cases of players in Iran and those markets, I mean, as long as the player has opened the account somewhere else in a different territory, has gone through KYC, and has made the deposit with a card that is registered not in that country, then it's very difficult to detect that. I can see it firsthand myself, because I'm sitting sometimes in Poland, where a lot of operators are not taking traffic, and I want to test some stuff. So it's enough that I use a Maltese account of someone, and I can log in from Poland using the easiest 10 quid a month VPN. So I do think that there is something in defense of Evo, that they are not the operator that have been accepting these players, and it is difficult on their side to detect that manipulation. It's not sophisticated, as they called it. I wouldn't call it sophisticated, but it's still difficult to detect. But I will see more being done in the area from everyone, because this is, especially for listed companies, you've seen how the market reacted. It's a massive risk. So regardless of their statement and whether they're right or not, they would lost out on it. So hopefully it will recover, but it will be too risky for anyone else to afford not to have a mechanism that can somehow, I don't know if it's going to be done technologically, but someone pick up those territories.
Interesting, Karolina. And Brian, if you are read into the story, I would love to hear your thoughts as well, considering that you are running a game studio yourself. Do you have any 2 cents, anything to chime in on the story?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for welcoming me to the stage, Pierre. It's been a while. I think I kind of echo what Karolina's saying in the fact that, as a supplier, you generally don't really get much access to what's going on from the player's context. So you kind of get a currency code and a language, and that's pretty much where you're at. And but with this world of VPNs and obfuscated servers and things like that, so it's reasonably easy for anyone who has any kind of technical knowledge to mess around and kind of cause problems for systems. I mean, even in a more traditional sense, we've had things where we've had players kind of pinging and messing around with servers to try to force and exploit and take down games and stuff, just to see if they could break them and things like that. And that's just the nature of putting a product out on the internet, for anyone to have a go at, essentially. So it's nothing's kind of foolproof. But then on the flip side, yes, you've got to be smart about who you're doing business with in general, right? It's not just this industry. So you've got to be pretty clear about the intentions of those partners and what they're planning to do, and then it all comes down to your risk appetite, which I think is a very, very common conversation in boardrooms these days about what is their risk appetites, where do they want to go, where do they not want to go, and that's a very hard balance to walk as well when you're in the B2B space. So it's not easy, I'll say that.
I get the feeling that many of the investors that have kind of jumped on board the evolution train have done so with, let's say, a bit gullible eyes, where the expectation is that the revenue comes from legitimate and good sources, let's say, and even though we as an industry know that some of the major operators and players are active in playing black and gray markets, perhaps the investors are not that in the know of this, and so they get spooked, of course, when they see a report like this, which maybe to us as an industry is not comes as a surprise. But when you are a $30 billion company, the responsibility to do the due diligence on who your partners are becomes all of a sudden a lot higher. I guess that is a little bit where the question is. It's more an ESG question. It's more an ethical question rather than a legal one, perhaps. That's the feeling that I'm getting. Is anyone in the room who'd like to chime in on this as well? Nico, I can see you're flashing the mic.
Yeah, so although Hölle Games, where we have the founder and CEO in the panel as well, is not yet valued 30 billion or close to 30 billion. But I'm pretty sure, Robert, you're quite familiar, of course, with the German regulation, and the German regulators, they also want to take the games providers into liability as well. So what is your take or your risk appetite, or what are your thoughts about the overall value chain, and that this might be a paradigm shift as well? Give us your insights.
Hi, Nico. Thank you. I think there's two topics, and it's also about market power and size. So as Evolution, and it's mostly about the live casino. Evolution obviously knows if they pull out of a certain market, they should or should not be doing. Then they know there's one or two other companies, moving in. And when you compare it to slots, where you have 150 suppliers, that doesn't, move up your competitors a lot if you move out of that certain market. So that I'm sure that's also sort of. That's an important consideration. And regarding Germany and Australia, similar. And then what I'm hearing, and it's a rumor, meaning it's being discussed currently. And I was a little bit in shock at first when I heard it, but then I actually fell a little bit in love with the idea. When you talk about regulation, the first thing which comes to mind always is payment blocking and IP blocking, and we just know as an industry it's not very effective, because IPs you can change all the time, and there's all kinds of subdomains being launched in that market, and the payment company consists of 2 directors, 3 companies, and 5 contracts basically. So payment companies are quickly created for a certain market, but suppliers you can't just create on the spot. It takes you a long time to build up games, build up the name, build up integrations, and so on. So what's being discussed currently in Germany is that hopefully it's based on a blacklist. Let's see, not on a whitelist. It would be charming if it's on a blacklist, because then it's clear to everyone that there could be a list, blacklist or whitelist. Let's hope it's a blacklist, that you're not allowed to serve these types of customers. And I think that could be extremely effective regulation, because content is king. And if the players don't get any of the content they are used to, 2 things happen. Number one, I think a lot of players will actually come to, or are forced to play in the white market. And secondly, what I always felt about the black market is the sites look very professional. The sites act very professional, if you know, like management and the teams behind them. And also the games look very professional because they come from all the renowned suppliers. If now, like 100, 150 game studios countries who adhere to all of these rules, which is likely in such a scenario, because game suppliers are easier to grab. Let's say, I mean, you can't. It's harder to hide behind Kurosawa entities, let's say, because the name is the name, and you shut down that supplier, and the operators typically, would also adhere to this. So I think that's a very, very interesting path forward. If it happens in Germany, it happened in other countries, but in Germany, it could be a case where, it's black and white, where you have a blacklist, and the suppliers are not allowed to serve these players. And it could provide for. I'm interested to hear opinions on this. If this, I think there's one or two regulations where this is similar. But I at first I was in shock. I'm like, okay, because now I have to be the police to a degree, which is bad for supply. I have to understand who is illegal, basically, which is very hard in a, let's call it, fluid regulation like in Germany. But if there's a blacklist, that would be quite an interesting concept, I think.
So essentially, Robert, what you're saying is this blacklist would be a blacklist of operators that you can't work with?
Yes.
Exactly. So you would just need to follow that list. Yeah, Karolina?
No, sorry. Maybe I'm going back to the subject of Evo quickly in those markets, because someone sent me a message while we are on this chat saying, logically, Evo must have the right mechanism in place to block certain markets, because if you are in the US and you have to go state by state, how else are you able to secure, ensure the regulators that you'll take traffic just from specific states? So this is just something I wanted to pass on someone who maybe didn't feel comfortable saying this themselves.
Cool. Lisbeth, I saw you were flashing the mic a bit. Anything to chime in on?
Yes, and looking at from an ESG sustainability point of view, I think this is a good thing for the industry, and it's because the market and the investors are telling us what they expect and what they expect us to do from an ESG point of view. They don't want companies that are in regulated markets to be operating in black markets too, and I think this is a change, a trend to more of an ESG focus. We've seen it as well. We've discussed the Hindenburg research with DraftKings and SB Tech. It's very similar. And there will probably be more cases. In the US seems to be much more focused on this than the European investors. And I think it's a good thing, sustainability-wise, to separate the regulated, unregulated focus. And also the whole supplier and partner due diligence. I see that this is something that's a responsibility of the companies, and probably regulation on this will be hard. I mean, if you have to blacklist operators change every day, and regulation needs to keep up with that. So they probably will opt for something more of a protocol and have the responsibility at the companies, like, for example, how we are responsible for our affiliate marketing. And we've seen it before in other industries as well, like the whole clothing industry. What was it like nearly 10 years ago when we had these factories collapsing in India and people were working under very bad labor circumstances for big brands like H&M. And there was more and more focus on, like, H&M said, yes, but it's outsourced. It's the factory's problem. And it isn't, because it's now known that you need to know your supply chain. You need to know your supply chain before you and after you. And if you want to be an ethical company, then you need to work with suppliers that fit that. Otherwise, it will be seen like what we see now.
Yeah, that is the interesting question, I think, Lisbeth. Exactly what responsibility do Evolution have to do due diligence on the operators that are supplying the games, essentially? I think that's where the discussion will be held. Jake, I saw that you were flashing your mic here a bit. By the way, welcome, Jake, as well to the chat, and welcome to iGaming Next. It'd be really exciting to have you on here on the Breakfast Chat in the future. We'd love to hear your 5 cents.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pierre. Great to be here, and nice to be in my first ever clubhouse. I think Elizabeth made some good points there, and it also goes back to something that you said earlier on, Pierre, in that we sort of live and breathe the gaming industry every day, and it's quite important to really sort of take a step back, because a lot of these investors, have super diverse portfolios, and gaming isn't a be all and end all for them. They see a stock like Evolution that has gone up and up and up, and it's a sort of clear market leader, and then all of a sudden a report comes out with some frightening words in it, like US sanctions and some countries listed that you might not necessarily associate regulated gaming with, and it does scare them, and that sort of causes the sell off and the drop off. And I think the same thing happened, like you said, with the Hindenburg report. I mean, that was that was common knowledge really throughout the industry if you've ever worked in it before. And I remember at the time thinking, oh yeah, people are actually taken by surprise at this, because it's the first time you learn that these companies that we're all familiar with might be operating in some different markets to what they showcase to investors. And like Elizabeth said, it comes back to ESG now, and that is going to be a central pillar for how gaming stocks perform in the future.
Yeah, really interesting, Jake, and maybe it is a correction that we are seeing here now in an industry. And Lisbeth, perhaps you can chime in on this as well from ESG perspective. Again, maybe it's a correction here where Evolution will be more or less forced to take action here and start doing due diligence on their operators, just like H&M were back in the day when before the markets reacted to the supply chain, they didn't have to do anything because it was business as usual. But once their investors understood what was happening kind of behind the scenes, then H&M were more or less forced to take action in order to work with more ethical suppliers, I would say. What do you think, Elizabeth? Will we see a shift in the industry as well, where the industry needs to clean up its act, so to say?
I think so. I think there's more of, when we talk about the boardrooms, more of talk about what is the level of risk indeed where we want to take, and what is the level of regulated versus grey versus black, and are these even compatible nowadays to work symmetry? Or you want to split your companies, but then again, they will look from whom are the owners, whom are the founders, and everything under those. It goes quite strong back when it comes to new regulation where you want to be involved. Overall, I think ESG has been taken off, and companies maybe have not always taken it serious, and that's why I say this is a good thing, because if we want to be companies that are regulated markets, we will focus on it, and it will be in the end a better thing for the industry, because the stigma around the industry and the reputation will improve if we can prove our ESG focus.
One step back in order to take 2 steps forwards, in other words. Now, the question is, the natural follow-up question from investors will be to ask Evolution just how much revenue comes from black markets. I mean, it's not exactly something Evolution would like to disclose in their quarterly reports, but I would assume at least that investors are asking this question because if it is the case that Evolution will kind of have to start taking a step back from these black markets and potentially have to take a step away from certain nefarious operators, then again the question becomes like, how much revenue will they actually lose? And I would say that the expectation is that it could be a quite significant portion of the entire revenue. I don't know if anyone would like to chime in or have any kind of guesses or thoughts on what the revenue from Evolution's black markets could actually be, but I would assume that it's quite significant.
I want to just quickly point out one thing. If you go to reports of Evolution, quarterly or yearly reports, there is a section that says Asia, and it's in the reports openly. So I am on the boat of investors in the market being completely dumb, because Evolution is not hiding these things. They are publicly putting them out there. And the investors in the US market really jumped on it. Oh, it's a growing stock. And actions that have been taken right now, I don't know who did them, but they're obviously motivated to create some damage. Because if you run such a huge operation as Evolution guys, then you cannot handle every single player that is trying to go around your systems that are set up as a macro system. So for the US, I understand it's well regulated. You set up separate servers, separate systems, and you keep them in the state. But how you do this for Europe or like, let's say, .com, rest of the world, gray market, it's nearly impossible from technical point of view, and it requires a lot of personal investment. I mean, like from HR, a lot of people that needs to really sit there and do manual work. So on the explanation that Evolution put out there, I'm definitely on their side on this one, because it was just an exercise showing, okay, we can go around your systems if we want to, and if we put enough resources to do so.
Right. Thanks, Anne. And I'd like to jump over to Bernd Henning as well. It's nice to have you in the Clubhouse chat here as well. Any comments, any thoughts from your end as well here on the Evolution topic?
Yeah, it's difficult to say because I've been on both sides, and I know that in each contract you have as an operator with a game supplier, there is a list of restricted countries, and you have to sign markets. But as the previous speaker said, it's easy for customers to go around, even if you declare that you don't allow them. So if they have a credit card from another country, and even in Europe, we see at the moment that, especially in Germany, it's going to grey market, and it's difficult for a game supplier to control that. So as long as there is not a system worldwide which controls money flow and other things, internet has no walls, so there will be always a way around. And you can just, as a supplier, make sure that your systems are as good as possible, but you can't blame them really. So if they are not going openly to someone and say, okay, yeah, go for it, we don't mind. So, which Evolution is not doing. It's difficult.
Difficult indeed. And as we've had this conversation, I can now say that Evolution is down 10.5% on the markets only today. And this is 2 hours after the markets has opened today. So some absolutely Nostradamus on the markets today for Evolution. And I would assume that that there's a lot of discussions happening in the boardroom as we speak, how to handle this conversation. And just to chime in so far, just to go take a step back, Evolution released a statement, again taking a step back from these accusations, and also in an investor call, Martin Carlson, the CEO, kind of reiterated was stated in this press release, basically taking a step back from these accusations. But obviously the investors are not pleased with this response, and since that statement, again, the shares keep falling. So I'm sure that this is not the last that we've heard from this situation, and if this keeps, if the shares keep falling, obviously Evolution will be kind of forced to communicate more publicly on this situation and so on. So we'll follow this very closely, and I'm sure we'll follow up on this next week as well. But it's time to wrap up. And before we do that, is there any final comment here on the Evolution saga, or shall we start wrapping up?
So not directly on the Evolution saga itself, but from an investor perspective, and just keeping in mind what has happened as soon as the Dutch market turned from a gray to a black market with respect to, out of a sudden, all non-licensed entities needed to actually stop their operations. And just keeping in mind that Kindred, they lost 30% of their EBITDA. So from an investor perspective, of course, you need to know these things prior actually investing into a company if a significant portion of EBITDA actually is at risk at any time. So that's just my 1 or 2 sentences on this topic.
Cool, thank you, Nico. Yeah, we can see these shares keep falling, 11.5%. It's a free fall at the moment. That's happening on the stock market. Keep an eye on this. What's going to happen today, and we'll see where the evolution share price ends up today. They are practically most of the profits on the share market for the year is wiped out. I think the last time they were at 1,085 was kind of end of February or something along those lines. But yeah, let's keep an eye, and we'll see what happens here with the Evolution Saga. In any case, I'd like to thank everyone for coming on board today to the breakfast chat. It's been a super interesting hour, like always, and I really am thankful to Nico and Karolina, my dear co-moderators, for doing this together with me every single week. And Bogdan, Rory, Robert, Lisbeth, Jan, Bernd, and everyone else who came onto the stage today to share your valuable opinions. We really appreciate that. Just to a final note here as well, like always in the broadcast, we are recording these sessions and they will be published. So if there is anything that has been said today that you would not want to have public, then feel free to reach out to me, and we will obviously make sure that this is not being so we very much respect the privacy of Clubhouse. With that said, thank you guys, everyone, and I would like to wish you all a fantastic Thursday and rest of the week here. And I will see some of you guys in North America next week. I'll see some of you in Barcelona the following week, and for the rest of you, I will see you here next week in the Breakfast Chat. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Pierre. We'll see you in WGS.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, see you there.
Bye.